of the Belton City Council regular meeting, July 23rd, 2019. Calling the work session to order. Items for review and discussion. Who do you have?
The first item this evening, Mr. Mayor, is the June monthly financial report, and we have our Assistant City Manager and Finance Director, Sheila Ernst, with that.
Good evening. At your seat, I printed out the June 30th, 2019 monthly financial report for this year, and I also put 3 of the pages from the same report last year, just for comparison. And then this is the end of our 3rd month, so our first quarter of this fiscal year. And we always concentrate on the general fund. The general fund's the most important fund in the city because that is the only money that is not restricted for a special purpose. And so all of the departments and services that don't have their own funding source are paid out of the general fund. Through the end of the first quarter, our gas utility franchise tax, just because of the heat this summer, and also of the cold winter, you can tell that our franchise taxes are trending a little bit ahead of where we expected through the first quarter. Now, this is very early. Franchise taxes, as all revenue, not property taxes, but the other revenues come in pretty steadily throughout the year. And so this could change. This is just kind of a snapshot of where we are at the end of the first quarter. Ambulance fees and court fines and costs are the revenues that are trending below where we anticipated this year. And that is really ambulance fees. Our fire calls are up by 13 overall year to date, but the emergency medical service calls are down by 38 calls year to date through June 30th.
Before you go any further, why are the ambulance fees, are we doing anything to get that up to healthier belt?
There's 2 reasons for that. One is because the ambulance calls year to date, the emergency medical service calls are just down a little bit year to date by 38 calls. And then the other part of that is we switched ambulance billing companies, and it's taking them a little bit of time to kind of process through. So where the old one stopped and the new one picked up, that should come closer to to where we expected by the end of the year.
And how long ago did we change?
We changed in April.
Okay, so it's just a few months.
Mm-hmm. And there's always a little lag time because you have to bill, it goes through the insurance companies, and then it goes to the individuals that are getting balance billed.
And the courts fines, chief or you can say, why are we, whoever?
The number of violations from last year to this year, we've had 385 less violations than we did last year for the same period through June 30th. Any other questions about that page?
Anybody on that page? Questions? Okay.
If you go to it's page number 2, it's kind of more like page number 4. This is just our report of cash balances as of June 30th. Again, always focusing very much on that general fund, because if there were any emergencies or any other needs where another fund didn't have the money, the only fund that could help that other fund out would be the general fund. And so last year, the cash balance at June 30th was $2.1 million. And this year's cash balance at June 30th was $1.5 million. So that's a decrease of $583,000. And really that is mainly attributable, $500,000 of that was because we did a transfer this year of $500,000 to the general capital fund. So we took that money out of the general fund and moved it into that general capital fund to hold if we needed a match for the Peculiar Drive grant.
And what's the peculiar grant and the grant, Peculiar Drive? You want to allude to that?
Well, We can. Peculiar Drive grant is the outer road that runs along where Texas Roadhouse and IHOP is. And the long-term plan for that from MoDOT is to widen 58 Highway, and which means that they want to close the access to the Peculiar Drive road. And so that road would need to be realigned. Noting that that's what they are working to do, the city applied for a grant through MARC, through the state, and received a grant award to do that project, to realign that. So that's a long-term project in the making, but it is something that staff is working on.
How much is that grant?
Oh.
A lot. That's just part of the match, and
Right.
our part is a 20% match.
Okay.
So the grant's 1.85 million.
1.85. Well, that's, yes, sir.
Is that the one I see on Facebook that you want residents to go and make comments on? Is that something different?
That's something different, as part of the long-range 2050 plan.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking
Okay, because
residents
it's
to
talked
comment.
about Mark and all that too, so just making sure.
Well, that's a good
For
point.
the bridge.
So,
for the-
yeah,
for the-
ours, what we were recommending would be to widen the 49 bridge, or the Highway 58 bridge over I-49, and then Raymore submitted a project to add additional lanes on the highway. So it's kind of a coordinated effort to try to, and hopefully MoDOT, they know that's a priority for them and for us.
So it's a regional thing. And how many trips do we have going across there? What's Mark tell us? How many cars go across?
Over 50,000
I thought it was.
per day.
I thought it was 60, over 60, yeah.
50 to 60.
Yes, 58, 60, and that's as much as, what bridge was that?
Buck O'Neill.
Buck O'Neill Bridge.
You're at least 20.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Across the bridge.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Also on this page, just right under the general fund, I just want to call everybody's attention. We've gotten some money in from the public safety sales tax. And so you can see that there's $143,063 that we've received through the end of June 30th.
And what's that go for?
That goes 50/50 to police and fire expenses. Okay.
Anybody else on that
If-
so far?
On page 3, this is the report of unreserved fund balances, and you can see that our general fund balance at June 30th, it's 7.96%. We budget to make sure that that ending fund balance at the end of the year is going to be 15%. So once property tax revenues and other revenues come in throughout the year, we anticipate that that will be back up to 15%.
Councilman Clark.
It might be too late, Mayor Davis. It's not something we can put on TVs for the audience to look at. I don't know.
I know what you're
I mean, I probably read it better up there than I can here,
And
but
is this on the website?
The big full report, so this is the council report, it's kind of a condensed version. You guys are emailed the big full report, and the big full report will be on our website.
When?
Well, probably tomorrow.
Okay. Is that what you're asking, or you want to show it up on the
they're
screen?
sitting there listening to us, not able to follow along, so I just.
I can't show them tonight because I don't have it on, like, I have a paper copy, but in the future, I absolutely we can do it on the computer screen so that it's broadcast for everyone. On page number 4, this is the statement of revenues and expenditures, and it's for all 3 months ended June 30th. This is my favorite page when I want to kind of take a snapshot to look to see where we are, because it shows every single fund and the revenues and the expenditures year to date for every single fund. And if you'll notice the general fund, we've had $1.8 million more of expenditures year to date than we've had revenues. Our revenues last year at this time were $289,000 less than they are this year. So we've had $289,000 more in revenue. $239,000 of that is from the GEMT grant. That is the ground emergency medical transport, and that is from, it helps us supplement the money that the city is covering for Medicaid patients. And so we received $239,000 this year from that GEMT program. We also paid more money for that. So we ended up paying like $154,000, and then in return we got $239,000 back. But that is shown in revenues, the gross $239,000 amount, because that's how you can't net them together for governmental accounting. And that is a new thing that just started this fiscal year, so we did not have that last year. And then also that gas utility franchise tax makes up the other $50,000. And our expenditures year to date are $511,000 more than they were June 30th of the same time last year, and that is almost entirely due to the $500,000 transfer to that general capital fund. I do want to talk about, you'll see that the public safety sales tax right under the general fund line has revenues of $143,062.97, and you'll see that there are no expenditures. We are only going to transfer money. So the general fund, all the police and fire expenses are being paid out of the general fund. None of those expenses are being paid out of that public safety sales tax fund. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the money from that public safety sales tax fund into the general fund when the general fund has spent money that is eligible to be paid for with that public safety sales tax. So far, the general fund hasn't paid any of that, spent any of that money. The general fund is paying salaries and benefits for police and fire personnel. And the general fund last year for those police and fire personnel paid $3,155,064.21 for fire. And so far, this year, we have only spent $896,523.35. So no money will be transferred into the general fund until the fire salaries and benefits exceed that $3.1 million base. Does anyone have any questions about that? And we did that to make sure that we were not, that the general fund was 100% covering all the expenses that it was covering the year that the sales tax passed. So that is how we are making sure that no money is supplanted, and that public safety sales tax money is going for exactly what the voters were told that it will go to.
So the oversight committee will convene at some time, so they'll be the ones that'll be the watchdogs, the oversight on that.
The oversight committee will be the ones that look at how the council set the budget in accordance with what your promise was of, and that's exactly how Sheila just explained it. And they'll be looking at that to ensure that those dollars are spent according to the directions that are set out, and that it's not going for something else that was not included in the law enforcement sales tax budget.
So that money can't go for anything else but, it's got to be fire, police, and sprinkle in emergency management,
And it has to be new expenses.
new expenses. Go ahead, Councilwoman Peak.
I just have a question. I believe all the frozen for the fire department has been hired. What about the police department? Or maybe I'm incorrect on that. But where are we at on those?
We have, since April, we've brought on 5. We have 1 in the academy right now. We have 2 additional that will be beginning the academy in August. We have 1 that'll be in the next academy class after that, and we are still working on recruiting another 4 or 5. We may have someone leaving to go to the FBI, but we are still working to recruit the other positions, and we're taking applications and testing and interviewing.
And the fire department had been fully staffed back up to the previous numbers before all that. So operationally, on the operations side right now, technically we're full staffed. We're kind of waiting for some things to happen to see if we're going to move anybody up or not. But our goal is to staff to what the levels were before the proposed layoffs.
So if it's 143,000, how many months is that? 3 months? That we've started gathering, or just one?
Yes, we got a little bit of money last month. The Department of Motor Vehicles, they actually submit their sales taxes, I believe, weekly to DOR. So we got a teeny tiny bit of money in the month of May from those Department of Motor Vehicle sales taxes that were paid. And then in the month of April, and then all the rest has come in the month of June, because all the retail stores are 2 months behind.
Okay, so, what are we going to estimate for that then? Are we going to cover what we need to supply with the emergency management and the fire and police, that we have enough money to cover everything that we've said we want to do? With your crystal ball?
Our estimate is that the general fund will be picking up quite a few expenses. However, I don't think that will happen, just because I can already tell you that we might not end up transferring any money from the police's half, 50% of the public safety sales tax fund, if their salaries stay as they are now. So of course, that can change as they fill vacant positions and things like that. Their payroll expense will increase. Also, as our newly hired employees start getting benefits, when they become eligible for benefits, that will also increase. So.
Questions, anybody else? Go ahead.
And that's really all I have to point out, unless you guys have any questions.
Well, in comparing and contrasting from last year this time, we were at what, 14%? Is that what we said?
14.45%. So
We're at almost 8.
So we're down about 6.5.
Why we've done that? Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Anybody else? Thank you. Let's see what we got next here. Nothing else on financial report. With that, we're going to adjourn the work session, and we're going to call the regular meeting to order at this time. And at Pledge of Allegiance will be Councilwoman Davidson, but she's on there. But actually, Councilwoman Peak's going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Here?
Councilman Savage,
Here.
Councilman Lathrop,
Here.
Councilman Trutzel,
Here.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilman Clark,
Here.
Councilman Finn,
Here.
Councilwoman Davidson, Councilwoman Peak.
All right, consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got that late eye?
Done a little delay.
Yeah. That motion passes. Moving on. Personal appearances. Steve Hackett, please.
I have some questions about this trash service that you're starting up. to start with, how much are these trash carts, how much do they cost?
Okay, go ahead and go through it. We'll write these down and we'll go through them.
Okay. Well, the second question directly relates to the first one. If we're going to pay $64.80 a person or a household in this city to buy these trash carts, why do you think you own them? If I'm buying the trash cart for my house, it's my trash cart. It's not yours, it's mine. Number 3, why after 3 years, after we pay for the carts, do you want to charge a maintenance and repair fee when there's a 10-year warranty on the moving parts and a 12-year warranty on the tub? And if you do continue to collect a fee after the 3 years, what are you going to do with that money? You know, what assurance do we have that if you need to start fixing these things, you're not going to gig us for more money? Because, you know, the trust in government anymore, I'm not sure I'd believe anybody tell me it's going to be in an escrow account and sit there for 20 years. And I have one other question, and this isn't related to trash service, but this is related to Centerpoint. The East Outer Road there from 163rd up to 162nd around the corner has been closed. They took all the road closed signs down, but the road's still closed, and people are driving up there and having to turn around. So they need to put road closed signs up there where the road is closed.
So not Centerpoint,
North Point, Center Point, whatever you want to call it.
okay, North Point, okay. Okay, when do we want to address any of these later? What do you want to do?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try to come up with, if we can come up with some information before the end of the meeting, we will try to address that under city manager's comments, but right now, I don't have exactly those exact dollar amounts and things like that, and then I also need to talk with staff about Outer Road, so I think it might be best if we can assemble these answers, and I get a hold of Mr. Hackett and give him some answers, and,
Well, can we put them out on
sure,
our website then?
sure. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
You don't need
put
to
a
just talk to me, you need to talk to everybody else in this.
Yeah.
Sure.
So is Facebook okay? City's Facebook page?
No, Facebook's not okay. That's not a great source of communication.
I'm directing it to the mayor.
I think it needs to be addressed in a meeting out in the open.
Okay,
Well,
thank
Could we
you.
include them in the minutes?
Pardon me?
Included in the minutes?
Included in the
The
minute.
minutes of the meeting?
Or the answers, the minutes.
Okay. You see what she's saying? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hackett. Ron Coggins? Well, you guys are almost neighbors.
Pretty close. I see a lot of neighbors here tonight.
That's good.
Thank you for letting me come up and ask you a few questions. I appreciate your time. I'm just curious, and I've been told in the past that the city has 12-foot easements on the streets. If that's the case, why aren't we getting our drainage ditches cleaned out in Dykewood? I lived there for 45 years, and for at least 35 years, the city come out and took care of the drainage ditches and kept them where they were running good. Now they haven't been cleaned in forever. I was told that there's an ordinance that was passed that the landowner was responsible for that now. Why would a landowner be responsible for a city easement? And why was the ordinance passed to stop cleaning them out, and when was it passed?
okay.
Well, it was before I was mayor, wasn't it? Because I don't know that one. But we can find that out
I was wondering if
too.
anybody knows it, because all of a sudden it just stopped, and then Mr. Lathrop told me that there was an ordinance passed to stop doing that. It was up to the landowners to take care of it. But that's a city easement, if I'm not mistaken. Is that not right? Is that not right? A city easement, 12 foot on the side of the street?
How does that work?
Can I pull all this information together and get with our city attorney to take a look at what our code states? Because I want to make sure that that's accurate as to what that reads before we provide a response.
Okay.
So no answers.
Well,
Not just yet, not yet. I will have answers for you, but just not yet, sir.
And how will I find that out? Come back to the next meeting or what?
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to answer that?
Not Facebook, I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, in all actuality, we will be placing these answers on our Facebook page as well for the other people that do look at that, if that's okay with the council. But we also, as we stated just a minute ago, we'll put it on and include it in our minutes
Okay,
so that people are able to see that.
thank you.
You're welcome.
thanks, Ron. Okay, next. Oh, proclamation. We got to get up here. We're going to have the captains from the neighborhood watch groups. Want to come up front here, please? We'll get this going. I know Councilwoman Peak's been a big strength for us, the Mayor Pro Tem. If you guys want to make a semicircle here, and I'll sneak through. I'll go get my view jack. This is,
You don't want to be in the picture?
come on, Attorney. And we have, how many groups do we have?
14 in total.
So you guys will take that and I'll read this one. We have 14, because I'm not going to read the names of everybody, like not everybody's here. But here we go. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch, that's NATW, is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on Tuesday, August 6, 2019, entitled National Night Out. And whereas the 36th Annual National Night Out provides a opportunity for the city of Belton to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts. And whereas the citizens of our neighborhoods and of our neighborhood watch groups play a vital role in assisting the Belton Police Department through joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts in the city of Belton. And whereas Belton City Council supports the themes of the National Night Out program of police, community partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation, and recognizes the efforts made by Belton neighborhood watch groups. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jeff Davis, Mayor of Belton, Missouri, do hereby proclaim that Tuesday, August 6, 2019, as National Night Out in the city of Belton, and encourage all residents to join the Belton Police Department, Belton's neighborhood watch groups, and the NATW in supporting the 36th Annual National Night Out, August 6, 2019. Therefore, I, Jeff Davis, Mayor of the city of Belton, have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed at Belton, Missouri, this 23rd day of July in the year of our Lord 2019. So why don't we hand these out to each one and give the next ones to Lieutenant Dan? And why don't we let them do it too? I'll give you one right here. Okay. Congratulations. And we'll go by and shake everybody's hands. Good stuff. Well, let's get a picture. Have we got a picture already? Did we get a picture? Thank you all very much. Appreciate you. All right, we got to turn the page here. And we go to ordinances. Motion approving both readings of bill number 2019-43.
An ordinance approving an amendment to the city's zoning map from M1 Light Industrial District to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial of the North Scott Corridor District for a 2.07 acre tract of land located at 1002 North Scott, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion.
Yes, this evening we have, This evening we've got Carolyn Yatsuk and Dave Clemens here. Carolyn's going to talk about this project and how it impacts the North Scott corridor, and Dave is here to talk about the process that we've followed through this, the applicant and the process that they've followed to get it here tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We are pleased to present the first redevelopment application along the North Scott corridor. The ordinance before you tonight is an amendment to the city's zoning map from light industrial to flex commercial industrial for a 2.07 acre tract of land, as Andrea just stated, at 1002 North Scott Avenue to allow for the construction of a new 7,673 square foot office and warehouse building. The North Scott Overlay District and Design Guidelines was approved by the Planning Commission and officially adopted by the City Council on November 7th, 2017. To implement the guidelines of this plan, the plan states that prior to development or redevelopment of any site within the overlay district, the property shall be rezoned consistent with the land use designation identified in the North Scott Corridor Overlay District. Dave Clements, the city's Building and Planning Director, will present the details of the project.
Just as a follow-up to Carolyn's introduction on the rezoning, as a companion piece to the rezoning request, a final development plan is required by our Unified Development Code to accompany the rezoning request. This final development plan was submitted to the Planning Commission along with the rezoning, and I'll present those highlights of that for you this evening. The North Scott Corridor Plan does require the buildings to be constructed with certain exterior finish requirements and other design elements as called out in the code. I do have a line drawing of the building elevation here for you. The street-facing facade of the industrial building must utilize materials that are prescribed in the plan within a certain percent. The building proposed with this application has two types of brick. It has a lower color brick, a middle portion brick, and the top portion of the building is stucco with transparent windows. The masonry materials equal 100% of that front elevation of the building, exceeding the minimum requirements of the North Scott Corridor Plan. Additionally, the building provides a mix of materials on the upper floor and the ground level. There is a pedestrian entryway in front of the building that provides a articulation, and as I stated earlier, there's transparent glass windows that meet the requirements of the plan. The final development plan does meet all the building setback, building requirements, building height, lot size, parking requirements of the code, and the North Scott Corridor Plan. There was a final landscaping plan submitted with the final development plan that is on the page here, difficult to read, but I will summarize and state that the landscaping plan meets the overall open space requirements of the corridor plan. The building has required foundation plantings, required parking lot landscaping, and of course it does have required street trees on that final landscaping plan. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the final development plan. I'd also note that the Planning Commission convened a public hearing on July 1st of this year. That public hearing was pursuant to a public notice published in a local newspaper on June 14th. And additionally, there were 24 certified letters submitted to adjoining property owners. No one attended that public hearing and no one spoke in opposition to the rezoning request. So that does summarize the public participation element of this rezoning request. Be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Councilman Trutzel.
This is the first building that conforms to our long-term vision, isn't it?
This is the first building along North Scott, yes, sir.
I know we spent many years ago developing the long-term division and it's kind of nice finally to see a building that would probably meet those qualifications. It's been a long-term process.
Yes, we do think it's a great start.
Councilman Finn?
Are they asking for any tax breaks to put this in?
No incentive, no, sir.
So there's no incentives at all?
No incentives?
No, sir.
Okay.
Great.
Somebody else? Councilman Clark?
Is there any use for this building yet, or is it just,
It will be a speculatively constructed building, yes.
okay?
And Mr. Weideman's been very active in the North Scott Corridor Plan. I know that for quite a while in the initial. And he's a great partner that we've had, and we're excited. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing for North Scott. So we're pretty excited for him and for the development. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Did I hear Councilwoman Davidson?
Did you hear the question? Stephanie?
Timed out.
Oh, it's okay.
Go ahead. It's a good time.
Mayor said go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to ask the difference between the two zoning categories of M1 versus FCI.
Well, certainly the M1 is the light manufacturing district currently in the Unified Development Code, and that is the present zoning of the property. As Carolyn summarized, in order to implement the requirements of the North Scott Corridor Plan, the plan does state that properties should be rezoned to the Flex Commercial Industrial classification in order to bring forward all those design elements and building materials and landscaping requirements. It's the implementation tool for the North Scott Corridor Plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we've voted, and we're ready to move on to...
Move for second reading.
Motion for a second reading?
Second.
And a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. So A, motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-43.
An ordinance approving an amendment to the city's zoning map from M1 Light Industrial District to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial of the North Scott Corridor District for a 2.07 acre tract of land located at 1002 North Scott, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Does anybody know what this, Dave, how much this project is estimated to be?
No, sir, I don't have an estimate of construction value at this point.
Okay, I was just curious, because it looks, how many square feet was that?
7,000.
Wow, okay. Any other discussion or any points? Anybody? Seeing none.
Councilwoman Davidson,
Aye.
Councilman Savage,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Resolutions. A motion approving Resolution R 2019-66.
A resolution approving a professional services agreement with Sturgis Word Communications Incorporated to provide media relations and social media communications support and consulting for economic development and city communications.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Councilman Clark.
I mean, being new to this council, I mean, how often do we use someone like this?
Quite often. And so if the mayor and council, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, can I provide a little bit more information?
Sure, he's asking it. That's
Okay,
good.
so just want to make sure. In this situation, this contract would take the place of the contract that we had with Krista Claus Consulting, doing some traditional media services such as news releases, city communications. We did education of the bond issuances, things like would do those traditional media outlets. And then in this situation, when we were looking at, when Krista left, what I wanted to do was be able to take a look at and say, okay, are there additional services that we need? And one of the things that Krista provided somewhat was to provide those traditional media items, but also looked at social media. Krista coordinated some of that information, but what we would do here with this one, and talking with Melissa Sturgis, who's actually in our audience tonight, at direction from the city, Sturgis would create content to educate businesses and citizens of what's happening and or how to do business with the city. That instead of directing staff on how to do it, this individual would do that so that we can be more proactive and provide information to the community and to our citizens as to what's happening and what's occurring in the city, and trying to be as transparent as possible. Since Krista left in the first part of May, some of that information has just declined, and we haven't been able to get that out there just because we don't have the manpower, the resources to be able to do it. The item that is here is partially in the economic development budget. The other portion would come from the general fund, and it would basically be anytime it would be related to the anytime we do an article or a education piece to provide that additional information. If it's about Public Works would help pay for that. If it's about general information for the city, the legislature would help pay for that, or administration would help pay for it. So we would try to look at that. The contract that we had with Krista was $2,000 a month, so that was $24,000. We would be looking at approximately an additional $15,000 to $16,000 to do that. In the communications plan that all of you had within the packet, one of the additional items that it showed on there would be the e-newsletter. And that would be something that we would love to do, but that would be at a future date. And so the remaining part of that plan, as you go down through there, it would be a phased approach, a phased plan to introduce in next year's proposed budget. But it just gives you an idea of what we're trying to do to look ahead to get that information out there. Unless, of course, the council would like to do it this year. And then I'm sure Sturgis Word would be happy to include that in their services. The benefits to having these services, as any city, we want to be professional and provide the benefits of engaging our community with the most current information. And to be frank, a lot of that has lacked in the last few months because we just haven't had the resources to do it. We've done the best that we can and tried to get that information out there, but this firm would really help us in obtaining that goal.
Personally, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I said, personally, I think I'd like to have some type of piece, and we might have done it in the past, but especially about codes and just some of the major violations or that happen all the time that people are getting in trouble for. I mean, I've seen some stuff here on Facebook recently on social media, and just, I think being proactive with people and just saying, here's the guidelines, here's how much time we give you, and just, and that'd be something that, a piece like that would be very nice for the citizens.
I absolutely agree with you, Councilman Clark, I do.
Can I chime in there, Dave? We've talked about doing a summary, 2 by ward. We've done this in the past where we give a report on the codes by wards, the types and all that we have throughout the year, or we could do it biannually, where it comes up where we can get the data back out to the public, that this, and then we can compare and contrast what we've had in the past versus what we have now. Like we do with our neighborhood watch, we do it with crime, same thing, we compare and contrast that. You were going to add some more.
No, I was just going to say, in all reality, the system that we currently have is somewhat limited in that reflection. It will provide us with the numbers, but it doesn't always provide us with the ward or the exact address. So that's one of the things that we've actually been looking at, is looking at software systems as to how we can provide that information and be able to take siloed software systems, so to speak, and try to pull it all together so that they intercommunicate and be able to provide that information, not only internally, but we would be able to post that information and make it user-friendly to citizens to be able to interact, see information, ask questions, the like.
Does that answer everything?
Yeah, I mean, just comment from me is just sometimes I hear from people that they want our community cleaned up with crime, but I also think to clean up the crime, we got to clean up our subdivisions first. And having nice subdivisions, I think, will help with the crime also.
I agree.
Other comments or questions so far?
I know that Councilwoman Davidson actually sent me a couple of questions beforehand. Councilwoman Davidson, do you mind if I address a couple of those now?
No, go ahead.
Okay. One of the questions she had is, do other cities have these types of services? And the answer to that is yes. They typically go through a PIO or a communication staff person within their department, within their city. And I know this month, actually, I don't know if the council saw it, but the Missouri Municipal League in this month's publication had an article about why your city needs a public information officer and the value of strategic communications for municipal governments. And it really is spot on about being able to provide the most current information in order to be able to inform our citizens of what's occurring in the city. She also asked if this service is bid. And on this situation, I'm probably going to, Patrick, ask for a little assistance from you. But typically in a situation like this, it's not put out for a formal bid process. This is what they refer to as a professional services contract. And Patrick, if you would explain the background on that.
Yeah, the city's purchasing and contracting services policy specifically has a carve-out for the bidding requirements for contractual services. I'm going to read directly here, that are professional or are in their nature unique and not subject to competition. Obviously, these are professional services, and I think communication companies that specifically are focused on public governments are also pretty unique.
Aren't we supposed to look at that every 3 years though too?
I'm not sure about that provision. I came prepared for that question.
And so just to let you know how we ended up here today was talked with some city managers that I'm familiar with, and talk to them about the type of services that they've looked at that don't have PIOs. And so I spoke with Keith Moody, he was formerly with the city of Harrisonville. He's now with Roland Park, Kansas, who went through a request for qualifications process for professional services. And I talked to him about the information that he had, got the background for it, and they actually are utilizing Sturgis Word for the same type of services that we are looking at. And he talked to me about the process that they followed. So I felt really comfortable in that fact, which is what made me reach out to them to begin with and start open dialogue and communications, because I knew they'd kind of embedded and gone through the process through another municipality. And so that's how we ended up here this evening. And then the last question that Councilwoman Davidson had of me was regarding the limits of the contract. So what I asked for was to state, these are the services that we've had. This is what we're looking at going forward down the road. Would really like to take a look at the social media aspect of it, because that seems to be the way a lot of people communicate. And what would those hours look like, and what is the hourly rate? So we're capping ourselves at about 34 and a quarter hours per month. That would ebb and flow based upon the needs. So some months may be more, some months would be less, and it would be the responsibility of not only ourselves, but of Sturgis Word to keep a track of what's going on with that contract to ensure that we don't overspend what we have budgeted.
Roland Park, how many people live there?
Approximately 11,000.
City Clerk, did you notify anybody about how many of them do this stuff? How many cities do the same thing? Or did you send out anything? Or
I did not.
do we know how many other cities do this?
That do PIO services?
Or similar to what we're saying here tonight?
I did have an assistant in our office contact Raymore, Grandview, and Liberty. I tried to take a look at neighboring communities as well as communities that are about the same size as we are. And they have PIO staff in place, communications officers with their salaries that range anywhere from $60,000 to $90,000 a year. And the reason why we're looking at this is because, frankly, the the city, we're trying to be good stewards of our dollars, keep it attainable and keep it practical. And so when we're looking at about $40,000 a year, we're hoping that we're able to do that, but yet still be able to provide good, solid communication to our citizens.
Does Grandview have one, you said?
Yes, they do.
They
Okay.
do?
They've had one for several or many years, actually.
Well, then that goes on with my next question. If, how many does Raymore have? Do they have just one, or?
Well, I think they've got one, and then they've got a manager that oversees multiple areas, and then he's also over that department, so I'm not exactly sure how
Do we
that
know what they
classifies.
pay or anything like that?
Well, like I said, that range can be 60 to 90,000 was the range that I got from them today, but those were in playing phone tag, going back and forth trying to get that information.
60 to 90,000. Well, I liked Krista Claus, and I liked watching Channel 9, where she was at, and she did a really good job, and I hate that we lost her. But are we going to have somebody like from a TV network or anything like that?
Actually, we have, Melissa, if you don't mind coming to the podium, I would like to introduce you. This is Melissa Sturgis with Sturgis Ward. She also has an associate with her, but I think she's looking at me like she doesn't really want to come forward. And so maybe, Melissa, if you don't mind giving a little bit of background about yourself and how long you've been in business and the like.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this is our 25th year, and we're a small, I like to say we're a small agile team. We have about 6 people. We've done a lot of work in economic development and with municipalities because economic development tells you what's about to happen and to help you grow your city, so we're really interested in that. And so we worked with the city of Kansas City, Missouri for most recently a dozen years for their EDC. And it's just something we have a passion for, and we know that what the city does is complicated, and whatever can be done to help you be effective in meeting your obligation to communicate, we'd just like to be a part of that.
Questions while we have her up here? Anybody? You got anything else?
Nope, that should do it.
Thank
for
you,
me.
ma'am. I'm sorry, I thought you were one of our citizens earlier.
Feeling that way.
Welcome.
Well, welcome to Belmont. We're glad you came to the meeting tonight. Without any other conversation, did you have one?
Well, I have something there that I'm sure that this.
Is it on?
It's on.
Okay.
I'm just talking slowly.
Okay.
I know this covers more than economic development,
Sure.
so it's a little bit different. But I've been to a couple seminars on people that's working for the cities to get their name out there, like, you know, what do you want the city to do, like Belton's proud past, bright future, or Belton a place to be. And this one course I was in brought up everybody in the southwest corner of the United States. 6 of them had the same guy making up what they're going to put out there. And all of them was the same thing. So, you know, I'm not saying this is going to happen here, but it's something that we need to watch.
Right, right, and anything that's posted comes at the direction of the city. It's based upon what's happening in the city.
Yeah. And then some of the others was really dumb. But the one that's just south of, I forget what city it was, down south, comfortably south of New Orleans, somewhere down there. But, you know, what does that mean? You know, for a city tag. I didn't mean to. This kind of makes me wonder, are we watching what's going out there?
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Comments? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
You gotta wait 3 seconds to find out if you.
I kind of delayed it. Right. Okay, city council liaison reports. Is she going to do it, or are you going to do it for her?
I'm going to do it for her.
You're going to be the park tonight?
I'm going to be the park liaison tonight. Yes, she sent me all the information, so here we go. There's quite a bit. There's still spots open to join us for a paint party just for kids. It's at High Blue this Friday, July 26th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's just $20, and that includes paint, brushes, canvas, cleanup, and snacks. We'll leave the fun painting to a sea lion to you. It's for kids 7 and up. It's a great opportunity for the kids to be creative and take home their priceless work. Sign up at High Blue or by calling 348-7400. Enter the fantastic world of Dr. Seuss. Join us in Memorial Park on Friday, August 9th at 8 p.m., where you will revisit your favorite characters, including the Cat in the Hat, Horton the Elephant, Gertrude McFuzz, Lady Maisie, and JoJo. Music and dance will bring these characters and more together on stage with the talented cast from In the Light Performing Arts Center in Peculiar. It's free and appropriate for all ages. Bring blankets and chairs, but no coolers. There will be concessions. Visit Main Street August 10th for an end of the summer basque. Free family activities and games, food trucks, fun, and music. There's a Belton Best Dog contest and a pie eating contest, sponsored by Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. and the North Cass Herald. Join us when Jones and Company Carnival comes to Belton's Memorial Park August 15th. You'll enjoy an old-fashioned carnival plus crafters on Friday and Saturday. Carnival hours Thursday, 5 to 9 p.m., Friday, 6 to 10 p.m., Saturday, noon to 9 p.m. Watch for more details to come. Almost done. Save the date for our 6th annual Doggy Dip Day, sponsored by Man's Best Friend. We are going to have a doggone good time on Saturday, September 7th from 9 to 11 a.m. We want to let the dogs have their last dive of the season at the water park. Bring out your canine companions and join us for the fun. Cost us $5 for each dog. Humans are free. Hope to see you there. And there are more events coming. Mamma Mia Theater in the park September 13th and Oktoberfest September 14th. That's it.
Thank you.
So is there anything going on at the theater? Do we have tryouts or anything now?
Stephanie, did you hear the question at the theater? Is there anything going on Main Street?
There is. There's production underway right now, and I believe the name of it is Death Trap, which is terrible, but I think that's the name of it.
Okay.
I'm not sure when it opens.
All right, thank you. All right, going down. Mayor's communication. I'm writing a few of these as I go through it. The MML dinner is Thursday night, and we have one of our people, I think he's here this evening, our Citizen of the Year, Tom, is back there. Tom has...
I'd ask him to stand.
Stand up, will you, Tom? He's our Citizen of the Year. He's been on how many committees, Tom? We appreciate Tom, and so he'll be at the Longview Mansion to get his due recognition at that, and we're pleased to go to that. And then the next one that I had here after that was, let's go on to this one, Light Up the Night. That's the chamber event. It's called Light Up the Night, which is night golf, and it's coming up. And no, it's not at Southview anymore. That's where the North Point project is. It's at Eagles. And want to encourage people, are you going to play in that? You're a golfer.
Try.
Have anybody ever played night golf here? It's a real adventure. It's a lot of fun.
It's so bad.
It's a lot of fun, though. And it'll be a good time.
Oh, I'm out then.
Also, they're doing, at the chamber, they're doing Stuff the Bus. If you all want to get stuff to them, if you look on the chamber event, they're putting, I know my wife's going to buy cat crazy woman, cat backpacks for school is what we're going to donate this year to the Stuff the Bus and at the chamber. And if they bring foodstuffs, and you can go to their webpage and you can find the stuff you want to donate to these people that need this. And I really support that. It's a great thing. Oh, but my wife does. Okay. Been following trash trucks around town for the last couple of days. I love the pink WCA ones I saw yesterday. Today I had regular ones.
Now, there was a pink one around today.
Really?
Yeah, one by my office.
I was, they're really good so far. It's been great. And there's been all kinds of great stories and things, and they're very, very conscientious. And I think we're making the best out of a tough thing. I really believe that, because it is tough. It is hard. And so they're really great to work with so far. They've been really good. The people, the staff at the city have said great things about the public, have said great comments. So, and it's neat to watch them pick up the old carts, because I saw those guys, I was trailing them, throwing up those things like 6 high. I couldn't believe it. Also went out to West Belton early this morning, and they started on what street? Did we ever decide?
What street did they start?
Montgall. Boy, did they get it all done today? That is a lot of work. But how many streets are being done? We've looked at that in West Belton.
3.
3? 4? Well, that's super, though. That is going to be nice. It's going to be a lot better. We really appreciate the staff Public Works is doing, and Bowen does a great job. Also going on, oh my goodness, we've been talking all week with staff about how to allow citizens to be placed on the agenda for public appearances if they have a question. Okay, so here's what we're going to know, and what we know and should know, and you all should know. You can email anytime questions to the city on the webpage, or direct it to somebody. But also, we know that if you contact your council people, they should bring up, and I'm encouraging the council to bring up the questions that your constituents have. And if you can get an answer before that, get back to them, or we can talk as a group. Call the city, or they can contact their council person, as I'm saying, and relay that information, the topic discussed. So when we bring up a topic in here, we can say, hey, my council people were concerned about this, this, and this, and then have staff answer those questions. We have a provision on the city's website called Report a Concern, which people may complete to have their concerns addressed. So that is called, again, Report a Concern. Now, where would they find that at?
That's on the City of Belton's website.
I mean, just go to Belton City website?
I think it is.
I'm challenged. Believe me, I'm challenged. So you can go to that, and then you can punch it in. Okay. But you got to know the city manager also brought me a suggestion, which we debated a lot. Would you like to describe the change process you recommended to me? What do you think?
Yes. In talking with the city clerk and talked about the prior requirements to, if somebody wanted to be on the agenda, they had to do it by Thursday at noon, because that's the deadline to put our agendas out. And so I stated, well, that's if they want to be placed on personal appearances there. What if we change that procedure? We still have a noon deadline for our agendas, but what if individuals, after they see the agenda, then would have till noon on Monday to contact the mayor to say, hey, I've got a question about this. I'd like to be placed on personal appearances. Personal appearances would still remain on the agenda, but it may not have something written underneath it. But we would keep that as a placeholder so that if somebody has a question, then the mayor would have a list of individuals that he could then call upon and say, Jane Smith has a question or has a comment about this, and they'd be able to come forward. But they'd have 3 days basically to be able to see the agenda from when it's posted until noon on Monday to then be able to say, hey, I have some comments about this, or they can follow any of those other avenues that the mayor talked about to be able to share with you, contact the city so that we can address some of those questions. So if you would like to do that, the Thursday deadline was to be able to get on the agenda. You would still be able to be there. Your name just wouldn't be in print on the agenda by talking with the mayor. How does that sound doable?
Sounds better than what we've been doing.
Yeah.
I think it's a step in the right direction. Absolutely.
Okay. We can do that.
Councilman Lathrop had a comment.
Well, I have a little bit of concern there. When you say, don't talk to the city, call your councilman. Because they call the councilman, I can't give them an answer. It's got to come from the city. So they call me, I have to call you, and then I have to call them back. If they call you direct, you can give them the answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's my philosophy, and I always tell them, call the city. If you can't get anything done, then we'll take it up.
Okay.
Well, I know Councilwoman Peak thinks she knows all the answers, so you can always.
She does.
Well, I mean, I know it's just that we're going around in circles instead of getting the answer for it.
Right. Right, and so, a phone call, an email, report a concern.
Yes.
Any of those avenues are great, and
Yeah.
so. But I wanted to try to find a way, when we looked at it, I know prior administration was very set on that noon on Thursday deadline. And so we wanted to be able to find a way and say, okay, well, what if we moved it to Monday at noon, and personal appearances just stays on the agenda? And so if you guys are good with that, that's what we'll do.
I think
Councilman Savage.
So is this a way of trying to address the double read? Because we're still doing work session double reads, which I've already voiced myself that it's hard to get around all this stuff, even for myself, in that amount of time. So is this trying to resolve a little bit for the citizens there? Because it still doesn't help me.
Right, well, a little bit of both in all actuality. And then for the double reads, what the mayor's asked me to do is take a look at those items that are truly needed and are time sensitive in order to continue to do business. So for example, tonight's ordinance, it's gone through a lot of processes. It's been heard by a lot of different people, trying to facilitate a manner so that the applicant could then get their permit so that they can then start the project while they're still in the summer months of construction season. And so that's why you still had it on tonight. If not, you would have seen a first read and then a second read. But we're trying.
We need to seriously look at that still, because again, our really important items were maybe a half a dozen a year until the last year, and it's been double read. Actually, it's been worse than that. It's been work session, double read. I don't even have time to think about it.
We did some background check on that, because I was really intrigued by that and I'm glad you said that, because I'd have forgot it. Did you get the data?
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Do you want to go ahead and do that?
I'm happy to do that, Mayor. I asked the city clerk to reach out on her listserv and talk to some of the other city clerks in the other cities to determine how it is that they do business. They all do both ordinances and readings in the same night. And so when...
Well, I told you already, I'm kind of slow. I don't just pick up on everything in the first 30 minutes.
Right. And I understand what you're saying. I'm just conveying information that the mayor asked me to share.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing
So
is...
he don't
is
care
that
if I'm slow, though.
I agree, but I also don't mind having a weekly meeting either, because, I'm old. And I mean that sincerely. I know that, we could have more meetings too. That wouldn't bother me, if that's what we need to cover it. Yes.
I mean, I'm just going to echo Councilman Savage. I've been voting no for the last 2 or 3 meetings, because I think there are some of these that we need to give time, just if it's 2 weeks, and we need to do it. There are some, just like tonight, those people had a chance to go to planning and zoning.
Yeah.
They were given the opportunity with letters, so I think they had their piece, and no one's contacted me or went to planning and zoning, so that's why I voted for it this time.
Right.
But there are some, like that road, yeah, it's an emergency, but we as a city should have done that quicker. I mean, everything can't be an emergency. The outer road there between 155th to 163rd Street. Let us take a month for that to go through and go through twice. We got a lot of people showing up here that live on Allen that might have some concerns, and let them be heard. I mean, I just think we got to allow the citizens on some of those ordinances to be heard.
A good point, honestly. And I know I drove out there right after I heard we were closed. Celia, why was that an emergency?
MoDOT did not send, as MoDOT does, they didn't send us the agreement till late in the day, and then they wanted it at the next meeting because they had given us grant money to reconstruct the road, and so that was part of their checklist to get that done. And so they asked us, can you get this done? And I think they gave it to me the week before. And part of the outer road had been discussed. It was all part of the Planning Commission and, all of the North Point development plans. So there had been all those plans presented to the public, at least at the Planning Commission portion.
And all the outer roads, who's responsible for all the outer roads in Belton?
MoDOT.
That was the answer I was looking for, MoDOT. Okay, so along with that, with the MoDOT part of it, And I went out and looked, and it was not good. When are they gonna open it back up? What are we gonna do? When are we gonna get some relief?
So I talked to MoDOT, and because it is the portion of the MoDOT road, they're going to have the repairs done by August 2nd, and then they're going to open back up the road. And just to answer Mr. Hackett's question, we'll have to go out and check on those signs because they shouldn't be down. So,
Well, they're gone.
okay, well, I don't.
Rascally kids.
We'll go check on that and make sure.
I worked for MoDOT for 30 years, yeah, I know how this
Okay. So, just to mention
They're
though,
my car.
the road will be back open by August 2nd, according to MoDOT, but we're going to be beginning construction on it mid-September. So there will be a portion of time, we're hoping to get it done by the end of the year, there will be a portion of time that that same section will be closed as we're reconstructing and repairing it.
Well, since I got you on the hook, I had a note here earlier. I said, Celia, how many sinkholes have we had around Belton this year with the rain
15.
and all that? How many?
15,
How many of them are emergencies?
most of them,
I saw the one over on
almost all of them.
Mark Lane. It was incredible watching that emergency. What group is it that we're using there?
So that is it Bright Construction?
Yeah, Bright.
And that's a sanitary sewer where the top, I guess, was falling in, and so it's
Top
130.
of what?
Top of the sanitary sewer, so it's about 130
concrete
feet.
or
Go ahead.
is that
Don,
corrugated? Or?
Don Tyler, Water Services Manager, he's been managing the on-call contract, so he's here tonight.
Golly, you guys are thinking way ahead of me. Wow, go ahead, Don.
The work over on Mark Lane was about 2 weeks ago. We had a backup occurred on a customer on Mark Lane, and we had an inspection done, and that inspection revealed that we had 135 feet of roughly 8-inch sanitary sewer main that has started to implode on itself, or started to fall in on itself. And unfortunately, when it gets to that state, those mains are roughly 50 to 60 years old. And when those mains get to that state, the only way to get it out of there is to replace it. So that's what this company did. Bright was contracted, I think it was late last week, and they started, got it done in about 2 days. So now all that's left is grass restoration as well as 2 driveways.
I was sitting there watching the heavy equipment in their front yard, and I'm going, gee, I mean, they were up in the trees, the equipment. It was spectacular to watch them do it. But my point is that's emergency. And how many emergencies are we having?
Well, what we define as emergency is if there's sinkholes in people's yards, and we're concerned about there being more settlement after the rains and fences, we don't want to cause any more damage to, residents' yards. That's an emergency. There's an emergency when there's a sinkhole in a street, and there's a hole in it. Sometimes we have some settlement, and we may watch it a little bit and get ready to prepare, but the true emergencies are the sanitary sewer where we don't want to cause any more backups. We don't want safety issues, and so those are typically emergencies.
How much is corrugated metal or whatever? How many of those through that area? Is it all that way or?
Almost all the old pipe in Belton is corrugated metal pipe.
When it comes to stormwater.
Stormwater, yes.
Is that right? Is that?
Stormwater, yeah.
Stormwater.
And the sanitary what was the material for the sanitary on Mark Lane?
It was clay pipe.
Clay pipe.
And
now.
clay's not allowed anymore, but back in the day, it was allowed.
So how much of Belton is that way right now, you think?
Quite a bit of the city has clay pipe presently, especially the Old Town, and anything that's been built within the last 50 years is clay pipe, or prior to 50 years ago.
So we can look forward to this a lot then in the future.
Unfortunately, yes.
Has the weather affected it a great deal, or?
The infrastructure's old. A lot of the infrastructure is original. And it's starting, like the corrugated metal pipe, it rusts out on the bottom and you have to replace it. The old clay pipe. And so those materials just deteriorate over time, but the rain, really caused issues where they were already in the infrastructure, but all the moisture and water coming through there, it just settled over it. So we've had everybody's had a lot of sinkholes this year.
Okay, and how much rain did we have on, what night was that, Friday?
roughly 4 or 5 inches, I believe.
Mary said she had 5.1, and I think at City Hall, they told me 5.3 and 4.9 here at
Yes.
City Hall in 6 hours, I think they said.
Yes.
So it's crazy, the weather patterns are right now, but I'm scared to death about what we're gonna have to do about everything in the future.
So just to let you know that the council will see a purchase that was in the 2020 budget for a CCTV equipment that televises the pipe. So
Right.
right now, when we have a sinkhole, we hire somebody to go out and televise and look inside the pipe and see, what's causing the damage. And Public Works, Streets, and Water are going to split the cost of the equipment so we can go out and obviously we're busy doing other things, but make it a priority to start televising those lines so we can try to, depending on funding, which is another concern, but we start televising, we know where they are, and start to try to be more proactive on those lines that we know are really deteriorating or failing.
How come you looked at her when you were talking about money? Just thought I'd ask. So that's not a real good thing, but I did watch them do that, and I followed a lot of trash trucks this week, and we're really glad that that's making the best out of a bad situation. Did somebody else have something to say about any of this stuff? Sir?
I did. I wanted to go back to where we was at, and I do support your thought, pushing it out as far as we can for the general public to speak. That's awesome. I support that.
About having 2 individual reads. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about allowing them until Monday to get on the agenda
Okay.
to speak. That's going to help, and I'll listen to that too, because again, citizen input is partly how that I become informed. So we'll see how that works.
Okay.
But we still likely will be needing to look a little further, as we spoke of last meeting also.
Super. Okay, and I got I forgot, I had to have Patrick show me what that color was. Tomorrow, who gets trash? What is that region there? That's, this one right here. That's like the plateau, maybe? Plateau and goes over Cambridge and up to by Memorial Park, and then I think that's Ward, that's North Avenue and just east.
Who
That'd be
designed-
like, Alan, is that trash tomorrow?
Thursday.
Yours is Thursday, mine's Thursday, okay. Apple Valley's tomorrow? Okay, what do you got?
I just need to remind people that you need to put out the Jim's trash cans as well as the city one. So they need to go out on the same day. Empty.
Mayor, I was looking at that. Who designed that? Was that the city or was that WCA?
WCA, right.
Well, I just noticed they cut Cimarron in 2 different, one's
Yeah,
Monday,
I know, I
one's
was out there
Thursday.
going. But what was neat was they did a 2-hour delay for picking up the old Jim's ones. And so I'm going, what's going on? And then I went back with Councilwoman Peak, and 2 hours later, they were picking them up. They were lickety splitting, and yeah, WCA did that. And honestly, I was surprised how effective it was to do it that way. Oh, I might make a point too about the lids and the wheels. Can you explain that? Because I'll get that messed up.
Well, just on the new carts?
On the new carts and the old carts when they go, well, they're going to lift them up
Yeah,
anyway.
sometimes, when they're tipping the carts and they bring it back down, the propulsion of the cart coming back down, the lids will go back over it. And so we actually had a citizen call and think that their trash had not been picked up because the lid was still on it. And when they looked, in all actuality, the trash had been picked up. It's just that the lid had come back on top of it. So
I've done the same thing. I always go out and look and see if it's got picked up, and that's they do. Sometimes they stay open in that process of being lifted, and sometimes they don't. It's city manager time.
Okay. Sheila, do you have an update on some of the questions that we had about trash, and then the rest that we'll try to formulate and put into minutes?
One of the questions was how much did we pay for the trash carts? So we purchased the trash carts via lease purchase. So the city actually hasn't paid any money yet for those trash carts. The very first payment will be due June 21st, 2020, in the amount of $149,859.46. The total amount, and that will be 3 annual payments, June 21st, 2020, 2021, and 2022. The total amount that we will be paying for the trash carts is $449,578.38.
Okay, then they're
Then
gonna answer that, why
he-
are we owning the, why are we
So
owning?
the carts that are purchased, the city will, we have a lot of people that when they move out of the city, they take their carts with them, even though they're not supposed to. So the city's going to be purchasing replacement carts, when people unfortunately take the cart with them. We just have a lot of properties that are rented, and it happens all the time. When people come in, they say there's not a cart at their property. And that's part of the cost of having the carts.
What percent does anybody know of the people in Belton that rent right now versus buy a home?
I don't know for sure, but I am thinking that maybe 35 to 40%, maybe.
35 to 40%.
Do you know? I don't.
So part of
I
the
don't
way
know if
that we've kind of looked at it is that the cart stays with the house, so that individuals continue to have trash service throughout the city. And then what we're hoping is that, and so when one of the questions was, why are we continuing to maintain a small portion and when it has a 10 to 12 year maintenance on it? And we understand that, but so that's the information that we got from the carriers to say that, yeah, we know they have warranties and that they should last, but sometimes they don't, and you should expect a 10% turnover every year. And so we've looked at that, but what we hope, and we just won't know until it happens, what we hope is that at the end of that 3-year period, since it's amortized over that time frame, is that we'll be able to reduce it back considerably, but still be able to retain funds so that when they do hit end of life, there will be dollars left. And so where do those dollars go? Those dollars stay in the utility fund. They stay there for those carts and for the trash, correct?
Yes, there's actually, on your monthly financial report that we talked about earlier today, there's actually a solid waste fund.
Sir, go ahead.
Got another dumb question on this one.
Not dumb at all.
So we build a house a year from now. Do I pay for 2 years for that cart, or do I pay for 3?
It's a monthly fee.
But in 3 years, we're going to reduce the fee to 90 cents, but I've only paid for 2 years.
It's just like, trash is just like your water service or your sewer service. It's a service that the city is now, it's now a city service. And just like people that moved in now that paid for all the water line infrastructure that happened 50, 60 plus years ago, you're paying the rate that water is now.
So I guess what I'm asking, if I move in from 3 years and you got to go buy me a new cart, is it 90 cents, or are we going to charge new homeowners, new residents that never been in the city before?
We're not charging necessarily for the cart, we're charging for the service, the trash service. So it's a monthly fee that you pay.
Quiet, please.
It's included in your monthly trash service fee.
And so what we're trying to do is estimate what the cost will be to be able to pay off all of the carts, right? So when we purchase carts, we have approximately 7,200 households, and we purchased, and so we've had to, there's been a requirement for additional carts. There's some people wanted 65-gallon carts, some people wanted 96. There's been a big request for additional carts, the 96-gallon carts. They want 2. And so we're looking at and so we're spreading that across the entire city and to try to pay for the carts.
I understand what you're trying to do today, but I'm trying to say is if you get a new subdivision that comes in here in 3 years and we got to go out and buy 500 new carts for this subdivision, and I know we can readjust this in 3 years, but I'm just trying to gauge, is it going to be $1.80 for these new homeowners, or is it going to be whatever we're charging the homeowners at the current time?
That's
all I'm asking.
We'll be reevaluating each year. Here's another scenario. So all of our households are not, if they're a rental property, they might not have tenants for several months. So we will not be collecting a fee from that house during those months when there's not service. So what we're doing is we're going to be evaluating at the end of each budget year to see what how it is, and that fee will go up or down based on what the needs are.
Questions more? There's some good conversation here. What else? Did we get through all of the questions that Mr. Hackett had? Did we get through all that? Or did you have some more?
No, I think we're there.
Okay, then, before we go on to anything else, are we going to talk about Mr. Coggin's concern at all?
Celia, were you able to look up during the meeting to be able to get additional information?
Yes, so hopefully I get all the questions that you asked. You had asked about 12-foot easements on both sides, on each side of the road. And so depending on the subdivision, I believe the older subdivisions required 50 foot of total right-of-way. So it's not an easement, it's a right-of-way. So that would be from the center line of the road, 25 feet on each side. So depending on how wide the road is, then the additional from the road would be the easement. So it's probably, assuming, it's probably close to 12 feet, but I can look specifically in that area because our new requirements are 60 feet of right-of-way. So it's a little different. Anyway, I can verify that. And so it isn't an easement, it's right-of-way. And I know the city attorney can expand on it more, but I wanted to look up, well, I know what right-of-way is, but how do they ask for a definition? So it says a right-of-way is a right to make a way over a piece of land. It's a type of an easement granted or reserved over the land for transportation purposes or other purposes. So in our right-of-way, we have sidewalks, we may have the ditches, we may have storm sewer, water, sanitary, etc. So that is reserved for city purposes. And then, of course, sometimes we reserve right-of-way to widen a road as well. So even it is right-of-way, but it's still, the property owner still owns the property. So even though we have the right-of-way, the property owner has the responsibility to maintain that.
What about people on fixed income and elderly and all that kind of stuff? What do we?
It's the same.
Did I see somebody flinching over here? Or? Okay.
So that's pretty standard for cities to have a right-of-way. And, the basis of it, if we maintained everything in the right-of-way, we would be mowing everybody's right-of-way portion, cleaning sidewalks, digging their ditches. There's over 96 miles approximately of ditches within the city. And I understand that the city used to do it. I talked to some staff that's been around for a while, and they said that they used to do that. And they also spent about 3 to 4 times a week mowing. And so, that's a lot of manpower. If we had the manpower and we decided we wanted to do that, we could do that. But in reality, we have over 53 miles of storm sewer pipe and about 2,500 storm inlets. And so as we talked about the sinkholes and the old infrastructure, that's really aging. And I think that infrastructure has been neglected. And so I really think, it's important that we focus on our city infrastructure. When did the ordinance pass? I'm not really sure, but it was in place when I got here. It's a standard that every city has, but I can find that date out. And then why did the city stop? I was talking to our street superintendent that came about 3 years ago, and he said, well, when I came, we looked up and found that the ordinance, and we stopped because we were neglecting our city infrastructure. And so, that's my guess, is it's just a matter of so much right-of-way, we couldn't possibly keep up with it and keep up with our infrastructure too.
The people that, and I'll come to you, Councilman, in a second, do they have to contact Dig Right before they dig in their ditches? Is there a chance that utilities are underneath their ditches? I mean...
We do have a right-of-way permit requirement.
So if I go out to dig in my ditch out to clean it out, I have to get a permit?
Yes. And part of that is, You know, as part of the right-of-way permit, you're putting driveways in there, so we go out and inspect it. We have a certain requirement for driveways. If you dig in your ditch, if you go deep at all, there could be utilities. So part of the requirement is to call one call to make sure that utilities are marked. And then really just to, you know, to make sure drainage pipes don't cause problems on other neighbor property. If your, you know, if your pipe's crushed or you pile up dirt and don't allow that area to flow, you know, that's something that we, you know, we regulate that right away, even though we don't own the right of way.
Councilman Savage, you were
We don't
gonna
own the
say.
property.
Yeah, so I turn that on so you can hear me. I expect that the ordinance has probably been in place forever. That's what we found in the sidewalk situation. It's been there forever. Nobody knew it. However, we do maintain the storm sewer pipe. This is part of a storm sewer drain. It is part of an issue that we really might ought to talk about farther. Probably not here tonight, but probably in a work session, because again, that's part of maintaining a type of storm sewer. And for us to let that go, we're letting the city go, pulling this all back to each individual who may or may not have the abilities or the, well, let's just leave it abilities, financial or otherwise. I think we need to talk about it a little bit farther.
Oh, I can concur with that.
Yeah, I can see the point on the sidewalks, as long as we don't get crazy about how bad it has to be and where they go, which we've talked about that some. And we've even did a share program, but yeah, I'll be repeating myself if I speak any farther. We need to talk about this farther.
Well, and I think, honestly, the way I've thought about it systemically, manpower, budget-wise, we probably can't, like we're talking about the Dykes edition tonight with Mr. Coggins, you could probably do like one street or two streets maybe a year or whatever and do it systemically. But it's the same thing in West Belton. It's the same thing where we have so many. How many streets have gutters or I mean?
So there's about 96 miles of ditches throughout the city.
You were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I was just going to bring up, just, me and Celia's been working on one over in Kentucky that the city's been working or trying to get it fixed, and I credit them for that, but it just seems like it's, especially when you get this much rain, I mean, the road is all mud, and it is a traffic issue when you have people going down that road that eventually someone's going to wreck over there. So if you go down Kentucky, you'll see where that farmland's washing out, and I know Celia's been working on it, and we've been talking for a month about it or longer, so I'm not mad or anything. I just bringing up the fact that it is something that we need to take a look at hard and see if it's something we got to take care of or the landowner, because if the landowners aren't doing it, it's going to affect everybody downstream too.
And just to interject on that, I called MDNR to say, how do you handle erosion off agricultural land? And they said, well, Missouri specifically exempted agricultural land from the land disturbance permit. We still have mud on the roads, so we have an ordinance that says to remove the road, but I was trying to look at a solution, because every time it has a high rain, it's going to get more mud on the road, and it doesn't really make sense to just keep sending them, you know, letters upon letters of clean the road. So I've been trying to look at something more that we can do to address that. So it's taken a while.
You've also talked about if you made the storm sewer bigger, then you got a DNR situation as the water flow goes across the street into Raymore, then the DNR, you're going to have to.
The pipe is undersized. It's an old county road, and it's 18 inches, and so it's getting clogged by all the sediment, and it's probably draining over to the Raymore side. So trying to have those conversations with Raymore, and you know, we need to upsize the pipe. We need to try to prevent the sediment. So there's a lot of different issues going on with this that we're trying to address.
Councilman Savage, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was, but I think we'll wait and bring all this up in a work session. I think that we really should talk about this.
Mr. Mayor.
Sir.
As the old guy in the room, I'll give a little historical perspective. This actually came to light several years ago under a previous public works director. They were spending a majority of their time in the spring cleaning out individual driveway culverts because of the number you referred to, the open ditches, the leaves that wash downstream. They were spending a lot of time every spring cleaning out those ditches and then mowing the ditches. We actually had a contract for mowing, and that public works director found that, like Celia said, that the ordinance had always been there, that it was the homeowner's responsibility. They brought that to the council at that point, and the council did say, well, we're going to start enforcing that. And so that's the way all of this happened, and it was within the last 10 years that it became the responsibility, it was enforced that it became the responsibility of the homeowner to maintain the open storm sewers as well as sidewalks during the winter.
I think that's what Ron said, it was 10 years ago, I think, to the point. Yeah.
So,
They didn't clean it every year, Jeff. They just come by like once every 2 or 3 years and dig it out so they make sure that the water was still draining down like it should be.
So we're going to bring it back for a work session, yes.
There were some that they actually had to clean out several times a year that would fill with leaves and the driveways, and they were out with pitchforks and cleaning those out all the
Well,
time.
we're going to bring it back for a work session anyway, yes.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
One, on the right-of-way, you said the property owner owns that,
Yes.
but the city leases it.
So a right-of-way easement, any easement means that you have temporary use of the property. But then a person that owns the property still owns what's called the underlying fee simple interest. So if the city were to abandon the right-of-way, then that would automatically go back to the abutting property owners because they still own the underlying fee.
No, I'm talking about, we have electric lines, telephone lines, and
Same
all this
thing.
in there.
Same thing. So like, if you have a utility easement in the back of your house, like behind your house, I know there's some that in the city that do, you still own that property. The electric utility, the gas utility, the water utility, whomever has the temporary use of that property as to provide electric service. Granted, it's obviously lasts typically longer than a short period of time, but you still own that property at the end of the day. It's still part of your lot. It's still considered a part of your lot.
Okay, but you allow
Yes.
other companies to build,
That's why
put
the city-
underground cables in and all this stuff.
That's why there's utility easements, right-of-way easements, stormwater easements, detention easements.
So technically, the homeowner has nothing to say about what you do with it.
Well, a previous homeowner or developer or whomever granted an easement to to the utility, to the city, to use their property as a street or for stormwater or for whatever. So, and somebody can correct me, but when a subdivision gets done, the subdivision developer comes in with the plat and says, I'm dedicating X amount as public right-of-way or for utility easements or for whatever. They own all the property. So your developer who built your new house or whatever said, yes, the city, you can use all of this as easement. For the betterment. So.
Work session, we're going to bring it back, all right? Everybody in agreement?
Well, I have one more thing, Annette. On this cutting the grass. It was the previous Public Works Director at the meeting when we went to pass the ordinance saying that they would no longer cut this grass on 120 people. It would save them probably $4,000 that they would put into the entrance ramps coming into Belton to beautify those. And he said, at the time before we passed the ordinance, whatever they cut now, they would continue to cut. Well, about 6 months later, he decided the next year that they was no longer cut any of it. And when I questioned him about it, his comment was, he didn't mean forever. And I said, that doesn't mean, you said that before. A week later, I get a letter from the lawyers that says the employee of the city cannot determine what's has to be done. If we pass something, it says no more cutting, he cannot say we'll continue to cut. So
We can bring that back up in work
it
session
was-
too, because it's the same thing.
It's just that, there's no end to it. It just keeps on going.
So we've got all these topics, we can get them done when we talk in the
Okay.
work session. So do you have anything else?
Yes. Chief Person, you have a report?
Just going to report about National Night Out. We do have 4 confirmed events going on. 3 on August the 6th will be one at West Belton, one at Lakeland Terrace Apartments, and one at South Fork Mobile Home Park. And then on the 10th, there'll be the large summer bash on Main Street. So that'll be 4 events that'll be going on, part of what you recognize tonight, and we appreciate all of those and encourage folks to participate in those.
Who's going to have the best food? Oh, I expected somebody in the crowd to say, oh, there we go, we got a hand, there we go.
Will we get a copy of those addresses again? I heard South Fork, but
Yes, we'll put those out to everybody, but it'll be South Fork Mobile Home Park, Lakewood Terrace Apartments, and West Belton. They have theirs out at the park there in West Belton.
August 6th. Oh, there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's in the back. What else you got?
And then also, Chief Sapp has an update for us this evening.
Just want to let the council know that the ambulance that was approved a few weeks back is slated to be finished on August 8th. So hopefully prior to the next meeting, we'll have that in town. I don't know if it'll be up and running yet. We'll have to get some radios and such installed, but that's the slated date to pick it up is August 8th.
What color is it going to be?
Matches our current fleet, so
Okay.
red with gray on top.
I remember some of you people have been around that it was, what color was always a big issue. What else you got?
That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
We have any other business? Councilman Clark?
I just have a question with Celia real quick. You talked about if someone wants to clean out their ditch and they got to get a permit from you?
We haven't really been requiring someone to just maintain their ditch. It would just be if they were redoing their culvert or really,
Changing the
a lot of
land
things.
completely.
So if they're just,
They're just going in there and cleaning it out and digging it out, okay. Well, I just got me to thinking, because I had someone ask me about a permit. If someone's redoing their approach on their driveway, do they gotta have a permit for that too? Or is that, they do? Okay. Someone asked me that, I just didn't know the answer, so, thank you.
Councilman Trutzel?
Chief Person, this is for you. I was at a meeting the other night and over at Cimarron Trails. And the question came up is that there's commercial building or commercial trucks parked on the street, which I guess indicated, at least a story was told to me, that a gentleman had a medical emergency and the ambulance could not negotiate the space in between the cars and the commercial vehicles.
Fire truck also.
And yeah, so there's a big discussion about, that you might want to check out and have the run through there a few times and put a warning on some of those commercial trucks that they need them parked someplace else, or give them a ticket, I guess.
We have given tickets, if it's where I believe there may have been an issue before, there should not be any warnings. That should just be a summons, so.
They need you need to kind of check, again,
So
it was reported to me,
Is this a truck that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's one of them.
That's one of them.
They also, when we met with them, it was really interesting and it was good. But I followed the trash trucks through Cimarron on the west side yesterday. And the trash trucks could hardly get in between all those cars. It was really, they were good drivers. I don't know how they, and then they'd put their arms out around parked cars.
That's not good.
I mean, it's insane. It's fun to watch. I mean, they're really skilled at what they're doing, but I wouldn't want my car out there. I mean, I'd be afraid.
Cimarron Trails is similar to some of our other older subdivisions. It was built at a time when most families had one car. These are single wide driveways with a single garage. There are very few families now that have one driver or one car. That forces them to park on the street. If we have parking on both sides of the street in those already congested areas, the older streets were, and quite often, so you mentioned, they may be 20-foot roads instead of 24-foot roads. So now we have terrible problems.
Thank you. Any other business? Okay. With that, motion to enter executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-0211, matters pertaining to the hiring, firing, disciplining, or promotion of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610-0213, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourn from there.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none.
I think Councilwoman Davidson left.
No, she's still there.
Aye.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Councilman Clark.
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak.
Aye.
Councilman Fenn.
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle.
Aye.
Councilman Trutzel.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilman Savage.
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. And council, we need to get back there.
Do you get to go to executive?